And we're live. Let's see who all's in here and we'll introduce the panel. We've got Lars and Unfinished Projects. I don't know if you got their spears ready at the gate. Just Mopar Joe says we'll be burning rubber in 3 weeks. Yeah, Joe's lurking out there. I see him. Big Block 402 and Jabo. We've got Shugu in here. Yes, we have a channel that goes by Shugu, of course. Big Mike Soupy Barn. Twisted Mopar Dennis, how's it going? Who, by the way, sold the Duster, so I guess he'll keep the channel name because it makes sense. Mohawk 62. We have Engine Light Garage. Dust Devil Garage is here. Buck Does It. The inaugural Cinderella Award winner of the No Name 500. We've got Mexican Spec. Mrs. One-Eyed Cat, Don English, is here. I'm sure Don is somewhere close by, too. Let's see here. Blue Grit Garage, only 64 subs to go. Yep, he has been hammering on it. That guy had 100 and some in June, and he's been working hard, and he's almost there. He's in first place in the No Name 500.
Oh, sweet.
Donald has a car. My mom is here, Turbo Tom, Hot Rod Guy Garage. We haven't alive without John? Well, no, I'm here. Let's see here. My Aunt Nancy's watching. Mean Street Mopar, Sean O'Brien. Finished putting his gas tank back in and rewiring the pump and cinder. Yeah. Mexican Spec asked how many hours it is till the No Name Nationals. The answer would be 469 and I believe 57 minutes. Buff Del Campo says we'll be live tonight. Buff, you're live every night. Danny Boyd is here. Well, cool. Glad you guys could make it. So we've got an all-star panel here for you guys tonight. I say all-star and NSB appears. Check that out. But we have some of the participants from the 28-10-5 heads-up class, the No Name Nationals, Eliminator on a Saturday. And we may also have Big James joining us a little bit later, but for now, we've got Professor P, Slant Daily Garage. I believe everybody here knows Professor P. We've, of course, got Dallas, AHRA president. We've got the Nelsons sitting there with something very interesting behind them that I'm sure we'll get to here in a little bit. And we've got Michael Yielding. This is the first time Yielding's been on a live stream with me, so I'm glad to have him here.
Yeah, thank you.
He got a crazy fast dart, and if you haven't seen that, go check out his channel, Michael Yielding. He's also the only one here on the panel tonight who's in the No Name 500. He is 131 subs away. If you've not been over to Michael Yielding's channel to check it out, you are missing out. That is a wicked cool dart, and you should go check it out. And he still needs 131 subs, so share that channel out, send it to your friends. They'll like what they see. So, but he likes a challenge, so he got this.
Oh, I got you right here. Waiting on still head. All kinds of parts.
Yeah, rocker arm woes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
in no particular order, you guys have all been drawn to this heads up 28-10-5 class, and historically, the idea behind that class is that you have a limited tire to work with, right? So that that becomes the limiter, and it helps level things for how much power a person can put down. It's a heads up class. So you guys are all this is a heavy hitter class for us for sure. So in no particular order, whoever wants to talk about this class and to people who aren't familiar with it, tell us what you're bringing and why you're doing it. What's interesting about it to you? Whoever wants to take that one and run with it.
Dallas, you won the last one. You go first.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, sure. I do it just because it's a heads-up class, and heads-up classes are a lot of fun. I spent a lot of time bracket racing, and once I did the heads-up class, it was like the bug that got under my skin. Thanks to Professor P up there, he and I did a lot of NA 10-5 stuff on the West Coast, and so I don't know. I just kind of jumped in with both feet, and then really, I mean, I kind of last year I kind of expected to show up and be the duck in the group, and I was just going out there to have some fun, and I get it out of my system for a while, and then I end up winning it last year, and now I'm stuck doing it this year. How's that?
Stuck?
Yeah, I'm pigeonholed into it.
Well, we runnered up last year, so we'll go next. Same thing that you said. There's nothing like heads up racing.
Yeah.
We land speed race, and you are basically heads up against your competitor. You go into the drag and drive events. You're heads up against your competitor, and there's a lot of enjoyment out of that, and not ever having the lift. It's your skill versus their skill, your machine against their machine. There's a lot of satisfaction in that. And I enjoyed bracket racing. I still enjoy bracket racing. It takes a lot of talent, but I very much prefer the heads up nature of the 10-5 racing.
Now, last year we had a lot of breakage gremlins, and Dallas, he was low ET running around a 6.0. And Dallas is bringing more this year. I think everybody's bringing more this year than last. And just goes to show you a lot of this class, because these cars make a lot of power. They're fickle. They break stuff. And a lot of it is showing up and making sure your car makes it to the track.
Yeah, it can make the laps.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, that's what helped me out last year, was that my car was virtually consistent like a bracket car. So it's well built, and it's fairly consistent as long as it goes down the track. So that's really what helped out a lot, was just being able to make pass after pass after pass. If you see a lot of the power outer cars, those are the ones that break a lot of stuff. If you could do it NA, you're probably money ahead, to be honest with you. But I don't know. It just depends. Usually the most consistent stuff is the, I grew up going to the Buick Nationals every year from the 80s until now. And turbo cars were the ones that everybody wanted to watch because they were super fast, but they were never consistent. They couldn't do the pass twice.
Yeah.
And that was the thing about them. That's where the nitrous cars, I think, have a big leg up on a lot of them, because it's pretty consistent. It pretty much just sprays the same amount every time, as long as you can hook it up.
Well, the nice thing about a nitrous car is you can dial it back and get a lot more management of your bottom end, whereas with the turbo, depending upon how you have your wastegates set up, it can get away from you very quickly. You want to try and do some timing retard control of your power, you potentially run into a boost issue. So you're much more dependent on multiple parts, whereas with the nitrous, you can do a lot more with your timing control, and it's way more consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're only relying upon those solenoids, really.
Yeah.
As long as you get your flow.
I'll put a quick note out here for SSR Performance. Big James, you have a link to this live if you want to join on the panel at any time you're ready. I know you said it might be a little bit later, and that's cool. Just want to remind you that you do have that link. I saw some smoke coming out of Professor P's ears earlier when I asked about this heads-up class. So, and you've always got something up your sleeve. What about this year? So last year you had a breakage gremlin right before the event with the master cylinder.
Yeah.
What we got going on now?
Well, it's basically the same setup. It's just that now I've had actual time to make the setup work, the combination work. And the Nelsons were just saying exactly the reason why I went to nitrous is I know it. It's easy to control with very little inputs. So one little timing, and you can really control it. So I've been doing laps at different tracks, different weather conditions, trying to, because it's still a relatively new combination. So I'm trying to get some data. So I know what I can do, but I'm not going to say too much. I basically gave it all away last year, but it's essentially the same setup. All
right, and then we got somebody who's new to the No Name Nationals, Michael Yielding. You're the one that people are trying to figure out. They're watching that white car, wondering how it's so quick.
The ringer? What?
Yeah, what? What say you, sir?
Well, I don't know about that. It's funny. Jump into around here. I run a class called Mean Street, which is basically the small tire guys. Small tire. I usually end up having to dial it back for that class because of what it is. But yeah, and I've got nitrous on the car, and I've never needed to use it for the class that I run. So, and I don't have a lot, but I kind of got into it the same way. I bracket raced for 20 years. And I basically doing heads-up stuff on Saturday nights. My family all raced on Sundays in bracket racing. I'd go Saturday night. I started doing index racing, the slow index racing, and then just working my way, and I'd see the crowd, those outlaw guys, and outlaw 10.5 used to be a 29 10.5 W. Yeah. That was a small time. Now it's a 28 10.5, but the crowd that those guys would bring, I was like, I want to do that. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. But I've worked really hard getting it's a motor car mostly. But I working on sport track every time. I got to running turbo cars.
I think he's got a bad connection.
Audio is breaking up a little bit. I think it's data playing in the garage a little bit. It comes and goes a little bit.
Oh. Sorry.
That's all right. I think you're on your phone. I think you're using data from the shop.
I'm on Wi-Fi.
Oh. So where are you in progress? I know that you're waiting on some rocker arms. That's kind of been the thing of the summer.
Had some rocker arms. Had them rebuilt. Somehow on my head, that
Michael, you got something canceling your audio pretty badly. I don't know what it is. Do you have an opportunity to get on your laptop or anything like that, or hardwired connection, or something that's knocking your audio out?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me try to go get on a laptop.
Yeah, sure. I can let you back in. No problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
While they were all talking about it, I started off street racing before I even did any type of like on-track racing. And then I believe it or not, I got popped for street racing. And so I started getting in with the police department. They did this thing called Code 4 Racing. And then I started building the cars for them. And then that's when I started getting into the bracket racing. And then I realized I could bracket race, but then I started street racing again. And then I went and did this like match race. And that was everything, because I got that rush that I wanted back on street racing, and I was hooked. And then me and Dallas, we were doing all that, the small block racing. Small blocks and big blocks racing the same class, but we could run a 29 by 10.5 tire, where the big blocks had to run 28.10, and then they had to weigh over a certain amount where we had to weigh under. I don't remember the exact numbers. I think we were under 3,000 pounds. I think they were over like 3,200 or something. But we could run the same class, and basically the bug hit then, and that's only the reason why I do all the heads up racing now. It's much more fun. I've been doing some small tire events too lately.
Well, ours was unlimited weight. Like you could be as light as you wanted, but the car had to meet the basic criteria of it being a car. It had to be like factory suspension pickup points and steel quarter panels and roof and doors, and had the factory lights and stuff in it. So that was the limiting factor on a lot of it.
Yeah, but the first year that they ran that, they had a scales over there, and they had to put the cars on scales. It was been in the butt at Irwindale. So I remember that now. That's why they went to that. So like it had to be a car. Like it actually had to be a car. It wasn't like a tube chassis with a shell of a body put on top of it.
So this is for any of you guys. you see where all this small tire racing is going, and a lot of media coverage, social media. This generation now has just gone its own way completely with this small tire and heads up stuff. If you could make any changes or steer the whole thing one way, the way the culture is going with 28-10-5 racing in general, what would it be? This is for
Car,
any.
cars versus chassis cars. That's the biggest thing I see is that like Dallas's car, my car, and it looks like theirs in the background. This is a real car. This can be driven down the street. It's a like Dallas is saying, factory pickup points. It's still a leaf spring car, all glass, all steel. I wish they had a class like that. Exhaust that comes out, no bull horns. Something that you could like drive if you wanted to. That would be fun.
What do you think about that, Nelson?
My favorite, and I'm sure I'm going to echo something that Calvin would say. The Dragon drives. They're real cars with the tire limits. Really put a tremendous challenge onto the competitors' abilities. There's guys that get away with exponential amount of spending that we can't keep up with, and I don't begrudge them at all. If you have it, go for it. It's yours. But when you look at the bulk of the folks that are competing in the tire limited classes, there's a commonality about that is very infectious. You go back a number of years ago to how tight the community was in the drag racing world. That's something I think we all long for, and I think we're seeing that rekindle in the small tire classes.
Yeah, I have a slightly different answer. Yes. What would we change if we could in the 28-10-5? I would say get it off the street. Dad was in a pretty horrible wreck, and if that would have happened on the street, the medical support and that kind of stuff wouldn't have been there, and he might not have made it. And there's too many people getting hurt or killed. In the street racing stuff, and you're seeing more and more tracks closing every day. And if I could change one thing, it would be get more people to come to the track rather than do it on the street.
Yeah.
When I was, it was right after I graduated high school. A guy who was a little bit behind me in school. It was on the front page of the newspaper. He had just bought a new Mustang, and it was I guess it's still a Fox body, but it was like the 96, 7, 8 model, something like that. And new car. He picked up his brother. They were out for a spirited drive. His speed was estimated at close to 100 miles an hour on a public road. And so, from what I understand, the car started to pull out and then realized his car was going about twice the speed limit. He swerved a little, lost it, barrel rolled about 8 times and died. And his brother survived. He's 20 years old and dead. And it's just absolutely senseless. And I make no apologies for saying that we have tracks everywhere going out of business that would love to have you there. There's no reason to be doing this on the street. And so I agree with that.
See, this is where I was kind of caught in a catch-22 with the AHRA. Was a lot of these guys, when the 28-10-5 came out, there's no rules essentially, except they had to have a 28-inch by 10.5-inch wide tire. And the problem was, if you were to like essentially just say, all right, well, you don't meet tech specs to run at the track, they would literally drive right on the street and run it right there, right in front of the track. And you're like, God, man, even though the car doesn't meet like tech requirements, it's much safer to be in here to do that stupid stuff, because there's somebody that's ready for it in case there's an accident, you crash, you catch on fire, there's somebody right there waiting for you. Yep. And that's the catch-22 is like, what do you do? Where do you draw the line? You know what I mean? And you would tell them, all right, well, I mean, we're running a whatever class today. You can't run in that class. You got to run exhibition only because you don't meet tech requirements. But if you're wanting to run down the track, have at it, buddy.
Since I've been on this side of the Mississippi, I've not gone through one tech. There's not been one inspection of this car at any of the tracks.
Not that car, but there was at your Charger last year.
Oh, the Charger, yes, but I'm saying that on this car, and all the tracks that I've been to 7 different tracks with this car, and there's not one of them. There's been no tech. Basically, just sign your own tech card and turn it in, and that's that.
I've seen a lot of that lately.
Yeah.
That if I could pick one of my own, it would be that. We need to have real tech.
I was all about changing stuff when I started doing the AHRA to make things better because I was trying to include the regular guy because it felt like the regular guy was being pushed out of the sport, something serious.
Agreed.
If you weren't willing to throw down your life savings, you weren't willing to run down the track, and that's where the focus needed to change. And it should be all inclusive until we find a reason where you can't do it. Right. And for me, 28.10.5, to be honest with you, I hated it from the beginning because it was more or less everybody jumping on the bandwagon of what at the time was the hot thing, which was the street outlaws deal. Everybody wanted to be a street outlaw, right? And they were willing to run with bad crap, improperly built stuff, not the safety gear they needed. Oh man, this is the thing. It's making me look awesome. But the more and more I look at it, is the 28.10.5 has already. That's the problem with true heads up racing. Is it always leaves the regular person behind. It always leaves the guy that's unwilling to not, if you're not willing to take your kid's college fund and spend it on your dang race car, you get left behind. And so I started looking at it like, man, if I really was to do this right, if we were to look at this from big picture, what would you do? You'd break it up into classes and you separate them at the things that matter, right? And you make 28.10.5, they all have the same size tire. They all have the same chassis and suspension rule requirements. But it gets to where it's like you got an NA small block, an NA big block, a power outer small block, and then you have an unlimited class, right? And that's the only way to really do it. But the unlimited is going to end up going so big that it's going to break into multiple classes.
Yeah.
There's no way to put the genie back in the bottle once it gets out. Is the problem. But I think it would include a lot of people and keep them included if you started having classes like that for quite a while, until maybe 5 years, and then it'd be something else that breaks out that everybody starts putting top pro line 632s with turbos on them in the unlimited class, and then you're going to have to go, okay, well, the guy that's got the 454 and the Shanghai Noisy Boy, he's going to have to go in the lesser class. He just can't compete.
This is a question for the Nelsons that piggybacks right off of that. So, within a few years, you see a class evolve to a place that, what do you do? Because costs get away. You wind up with a few people bottlenecked at the top who are really good builders and with deep pockets. What would be you guys' suggestion as to how to keep having places for the budget-oriented and the innovative people with shallow pockets to play? What would your thought be? That's a tough question, but you guys should have your finger on the pulse of that.
It's funny because we're kind of witnessing that right at the moment. There's a class that we're trying to participate in at Sick Summer and Sick Week, the Sick events. It's called Sick Week Freaks. And it's basically for any car that doesn't have a V8. It could be a V10. It could be a V6. They do let diesels run. So if you had a diesel V8, that would be allowed. But it's basically anything that's not like a LS, or a big block or something like that. It's for the guys that want to do something unique. And I've ever since they introduced that class, I've been in love with it. It's just like that speaks directly to me. But over the past couple of years, it's been growing slowly and slowly and slowly out of reach. The car that just won it at summer, he averaged an 820, and we're still struggling to get into the 8s with our cars. So I think my dad was struggling a little bit. I'm also struggling with it. Like I don't know. It's at some point the money's going to come in, and I mean you just gotta be consistent. You gotta be just because the other guy has a ton more money invested in their stuff, I would say you just gotta be consistent. You gotta have your ducks in a row, run your race, and hope that just because they paid for that fancy car, they don't know how to drive it.
Well, every class that develops, the cream's going to rise to the top. When Drag Week introduced gassers for the first time in 2011, we were in first place for 4 days when we broke down. And we were running low 11 to mid 11 all week, well, until we got to Amarillo, and that is so high in elevation, nobody was running fast there. But ultimately, in a short amount of time, that became a 9-second class. A number of years ago, I built the car to be a hot street car, and before I could get the car done, its performance level had gotten far beyond where my wallet could chase it. I sold the car to a guy, and that car runs 115 60 foots. That's a serious car on a 10.5 tire. And there is no way I'm going to run after his spending capacity. I don't have that opportunity at this time. So, the hope is always that something new will come along and you'll be able to strike the anvil on time to, see your moment of glory. And at some point, it is going to change because as soon as people see something hot, they want to be part of it. And nobody wants to be anonymous. Nobody wants to be behind. So you're going to attract good competition in a short amount of time. So every opportunity is very narrow, very short, and sometimes you can get there on time and be able to enjoy that glory. We almost pulled it off. We were almost the first winner of the first gasser class that was at Drag Week. We died in the middle of Oklahoma, and I finished in last place. There's always hope that the next new thing is going to develop out there, and promoters play a big part of that. That effort to generate excitement around something new is a very arduous task. I applaud you guys for what you've done here, and folks need to realize that the young man that is trying to get back on. I do hope that he gets there, but any good event is going to attract folks like that, and we have to welcome them, and we can't be sour about the fact that we can't keep up. We have to applaud their efforts.
So this is just what if you guys had the money to do whatever you wanted, what would it be? Because there's a lot of people that could have a lot of money, but it doesn't mean that they want to run the most expensive classes. I mean, where is your heart? What would you do if you had that kind of blank check money?
Well, for me, that's easy. I would be doing a whole lot of land speed racing because, in my opinion, I think the two epitomes of the ultimate sportsman racer exist in two places yet today. It's pro mod racing and land speed racing. When you look at the opportunity to tailor a car after your own personality, and you look at the characters that participate in pro mod racing, there's nothing like it. You got individuals. You've got that jungle gym aura about many of the participants that race that, and they have an opportunity to run supercharger, nitrous, or turbo. It is just incredible to see that development. When you look at what Tim McCamus did when he was running there, that guy's a character.
Yes, he is.
And you that the history of that class has been consistent. You've got the wildest of the wild flexing their muscles, flexing their brain power, and the only thing that I think that's really equivalent to that, and I certainly would love to hear others' opinions, but it's land speed racing. You don't have the characters there, but you have the true fabric of hot rodding there. You have your opportunity to express your own abilities, skills, and equipment prepared within a rule set.
Yeah, for me, it's road racing. I'm going to go back and do some more road racing. I did a lot of that with like dirt bikes. I went supermoto, then I did a lot of road racing. I did some cone dodging in California in the mid '90s, but I've always wanted to have like kind of a V8 stick shift, something that could pull over a G. That was back in the '90s, but now they can do that really easily now. But that's actually what I'm building right over here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's up on the lift right there. That's a 68 Dart, triangulated 4-link, coilovers all the way around, and it's going to look just Gen 3 Hemi TKX, an 8 3/4 aluminum, chunk. So it's going to be. That's actually what I'm really wanting to do right now. I've done enough drag racing. I want to do something a little different, And,
Now, before
I want to hit 200 miles an hour in that car. That's the plan. Is I want to be able to at least do 200 miles an hour in the car. Cross, the coefficient of drag in the cross sectional area. I need to make a substantial amount of power more than I'm making right now, but it'll eventually come.
Big James says he wants to go dirt track super late model racing. That's cool.
Yeah.
Real quick before we pop this same question to Dallas here, if one of the mods wants to get a link to it, that'd be great. One of my favorite moments from Pro Mod wasn't even on the track. It was a Tim McCamus interview he did with Brett Kepner from underneath of a sheet because he didn't want people to see what he was doing with his clutch. And that kind of stuff is just so much fun.
Yeah.
How about you, Dallas?
Blank check.
Blank check.
To tell you the truth, what I'd probably do is I'm an NA guy at heart. I love NA stuff. If you can make it run NA, God, you got some skills. You really do. And I mean, I like my T-Bird, and I guess the first thing I'd do is probably just put a stick in my T-Bird, just dump the clutch at 7,500 and see what happens. But, after I blow that tranny up and then the rear end and twist the drive shaft up, I really like where I'm at with Mr. Rodder's neighborhood because that's why I like the small block Buick stuff, because no one has anything for them. There's no parts for them. So it's real, true hot rodding. If you come up with something, it's because you made it, and that's the thing I really like. And I really like from the late 70s, there used to be a class in NHRA that was just hands down the best. It was called modified production. It was the poor man's pro stock, the little guy.
Yes.
Yeah, and I like small cubic inch, high winding, dumping the clutch in something that you engineered at home, and let's hope it works. And that's true hot rodding, in my opinion. And I think that's where, that's one of the things that we really need to bring back. I tried to bring that back for the nostalgia modified guys, and then all of a sudden they wanted to jump ship, go over to NDRL, and it was like, you know what? Okay, have fun, fellas. I mean, I gave you a shot, but I really would like to do that myself. If I had a blank check for that, the car's not super fast. It doesn't require all the super ridiculous safety equipments and inspections up the bunghole and my eyes. How well do they work? It's regular affordability without all of the stress and requirements of having a super fast car.
Yeah.
So
Back in the day, a Econo rod was the thing to happen. And, when Buick was developing the V6, I was involved with a fella who was directly involved with Buick. Kenny Bell was the sponsor. And it was neat because you had a spec carburetor and a limit on your cubic inch to weight. And the products that came out of that and went into those races was incredible. But they could really put a control on some of that with the spec carburetor.
right.
That would be neat to see that reemerge in some level. That I love NA racing. I love the RPM. I love all that stuff. Everything you said hit a chord with me.
Yeah, that's where I grew up going to the NHRA races in the 70s and early 80s, and that was the ticket. I'm telling you, if you thought Top Fuel drew a lot of people, when they called modified, they didn't even have to call modified. If you were in the pits walking around and all of a sudden you heard something that sounded like a buzzsaw, and you were on the fence line because that was the first car out from modified. It was probably 296 cubic inch small block Chevrolet with turbo fire heads on it. And it wound to 11.5 and they dumped the clutch. It was just, it had its own flavor, its own flair, and you really either got to like it or you hate it.
I actually have one of those engines.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a 296, 13.5 to 1 compression. It was built off an original DZ302 before they became what they are. It was the factory crank D-stroked. It's going to end up in a gasser, but it's actually something from modified production from back in the day.
That's awesome. On my channel coming up, I'm building a DZ302 called the Easy 302. I figured how to do it with new stuff. So it's going to be coming up here soon. I'm going to see what kind of power it makes in comparison to an original DZ302.
Nice. Well, at some point we're gonna have something similar. We're gonna eventually do a small block with turbos and apply all the things that we've learned on the turbo stuff that we've done to something old school. So it'll be nice to compare some notes.
Yeah, that'll definitely be cool.
Well, now speaking of the old school and the new school, Calvin, what do you think about that car behind you? And because I mean that's not very Calvin-like. It's really cool. It's just not very Calvin-like.
Yeah, well, I'm getting some of my techie stuff onto the car, whether Dad likes it or not. Yeah.
Well, tell us about it, because that one just kind of came out of nowhere. I love the video.
Well, we picked the car up about 5 years ago. It was right around
August 26th.
Yeah. Was it during COVID?
Yes.
Yeah, during COVID. Guy listed the thing for sale, and it had buttload of parts on it, and he wanted it gone fast. And
real fast.
Dad was messaging him among like 14 other people trying to get the thing. And he's like, well, I'd kind of like to sell it to somebody local. And Dad was essentially like, no, we will come get it right now. And finally convinced him to let us be the ones that came and got it. And we went and got it. And it's a 2014 Mustang. It has oodles and oodles of parts: optic armor windows, fiberglass doors, fiberglass front end, tubular K-member. They upgraded the 3-link in the back. They went to a 9-inch. It's probably got $40,000 worth of bolt-ons. And so we got the thing just because of that. And as we've been building it, we have been finding that there is a lot of things that were not done very well on it. The steering has been quite the conundrum. They welded the strut towers in the wrong spot so that you can't the camber is like all over the place. The caster was different on both sides. It had like 15 degrees on the one side and 12 degrees on the other. We like to run them at 7. So we've had to fix a lot of things on it, but we recently installed the beast of an engine that you see sitting behind us. It's a 525 cubic inch big block Chevy, and we're gonna
stuff.
Yeah, so the techie stuff. So it is carbureted. Dad wanted to put his carburetor on it, which that's okay. I'm okay with carburetors. I just, I can't figure out where to plug my laptop in, but but it will have a coil unplugged ignition because we do intend to put nitrous on the car at some point, and if we want to pull timing on one cylinder or something like that, it's particularly useful for that. In general, your spark energy, you're going to get a little bit more spark energy. I mean, you can do it with a distributor as well, but it's just easier with 8 coils rather than 1. So, we're going to do that. And also, I've put a PDM on the car, which is a power distribution module. And I'm hoping to do some creative stuff with that since we will be running nitrous. Your greatest fear with nitrous is you break the wire on your fuel solenoid and your nitrous solenoid is still spraying. That's a great way to destroy an engine. And with this PDM, I have the ability to put in some custom logic in there so that if it sees the current on the fuel solenoid go to 0 amps, it will shut the nitrous solenoid off. And I should be able to do some fanciness there to, also it has solid state, so we can pulse the solenoids and do a progressive. And so I'm having my fun. It's just in different ways.
I'm digging the build. It is different for your channel. I really like it.
Yep.
Well, it's going back to the 10.5. The modern technology allows you to ramp your power in, which has become a very incredibly important part of the tire management, the tire grip, and performance of the car, and all the gadgets that Calvin's introducing into this build are going to allow us to get down the worst of tracks, the best of tracks, and it's most of the things that we did in the past, we had to figure it out on our own. And fortunately, the tools that we have today that are in the box allow a lot of those things to happen. You've got to have a relatively decent tune-up. You got to be able to read your track. You've got to be able to know about when you can start laying the power down. But then you've also got these things able to catch the tire spin and that kind of thing and manage that power.
So what is the thinking with that build? Because you rolled that out on a video here a few days ago, and I think you surprised a lot of people, me included. I might have seen that car this spring, but I had no idea when the plan was to get it out. What kind of time frame are you on? What are you wanting to do with it in the near future?
Turn around and look at the wall. Yeah.
So I left a comment under the car, and I said, man, I'm already wondering where that might be in 389 days. And Calvin said, how about 24?
Well, right now our intent is to, make content, participate in the event, enjoy visiting with the folks that we have developed relationships with. We're really looking forward to that. And, we may have a few early run bugs to work through, but ultimately our goal is to participate in the event. At some point, we'll know when our cars are going to be, the car will be competitive for 10-5 racing, and I think others will know it also.
So, how have your plans changed? And this is for any of you guys. How have your plans kind of changed over the course of the year? Whether anything has changed in regards to No Name Nationals or not? Like, what has changed between, say, January and now? Anybody taking any interesting, forks in the road or change paths or whatever? What would it be?
I had my truck and trailer stolen.
Well, that's a big one.
That wasn't planned.
That wasn't planned.
That's a pretty big fork in the road. I'll just
Yes.
say.
It's for us. We've got a lot of irons in the fire, and we're getting some support from the industry, which is helping to make certain paths become more clear. As we're learning more about the 6-cylinder as we continue to develop it, both of us have a very strong affinity to continuing that effort. That said, we also know that we've got to pace ourselves, because we can make enough power to hurt anything at this point. When you look at the performance of the Camaro at the SICK summer event that we were at, that's over 1,000 horsepower that it took to move over 3,600 pounds at 153 miles an hour. It doesn't take a calculator to figure out that we're pushing that thing pretty hard, but at the same time, what we're finding is it's taking it and smiling. So we need to pace ourselves and make sure that we're building the right cars for that performance level, so that we can start seeking numbers that match the power levels. Trying to do what we did with independent rear and radials and driving at 1,000 miles put a number of, I don't want to say roadblocks, but ultimately impedances that you have to work around to chase the performance that you want. But the ultimate goals need to, the cars that we run need to match that. So the Camaro is very likely going to see some land speed action. We need to change a few things on it to make it work the way that we want to. But we've got a 17 land speed records that we could potentially chase with that car. So we want to do one more drag and drive with it, get it so that we can bump in, launch, and we're probably going to run it on slicks to do that. But that car will be converted to land speed for a while. But our ultimate builds are yet to come. We're still accumulating parts for where we want to go. We've got, we want to do an NA version of it, of that 6-cylinder. In drag racing, we want to do one for land speed racing. We want to do a turbo effort land speed racing. And we want to be front of the pack in the class at the drag and drive events. And that's a lot of energy that has to be manufactured both in time and in materials. So, fortunately for us, we're patient. We part of the reason we've been able to be successful is we have been patient, but we've also got to be mindful of the fact that we've had two major setbacks in 2 years in a row. Going over the wall at 150 miles an hour upside down and on fire is not something you recommend to any of your friends. That was a huge financial blow, and I've still got 6 months or more of recovery time, and then lose an entire truck, trailer, car, thousands and thousands of dollars of tools was a big blow. And there's no crying here. It's just we have to pace ourselves, and those major blows contributed to that. We're very fortunate that we've been surrounded by so many people that uh, support our efforts, and we are very, very grateful for that because it's making the path forward a little bit more clear and more quick than we would be able to accomplish it without that support.
Very cool. Michael Yielding, we've been talking about some interesting things, some questions I've just thrown about, and I'll pitch one I asked all these guys to you. If you had a blank check to do something with racing, any kind of racing, any discipline, anything you wanted to do, what would it be?
There'd definitely be some upgrades to the car. I mean, I'm just going to try to keep going faster.
Do you want to stay with where you are? Any class you'd want to be in, or?
I'd like to do small tire stuff, like real small tire stuff. Like I need to be going like 420s probably.
Wow. That I can't even imagine going that quick. I don't even know what that would look like or feel
I try
like.
to all the time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what you've had some setbacks, with rocker arms and things like that, and when you're pushing the envelope, you're always going to be breaking things and stuff like that. What kind of unexpected things has this year brought you, and maybe how have things kind of plans changed and shifted? Because what all of you guys do is a little different than somebody with a really reliable bracket car. They can settle into a comfort zone. What you guys are doing is something else.
Well, I can honestly say with my car being a motor car, it's been up until I decided I was going to upgrade it and make it better. It's been that motor was together since 2017, and I've made hundreds and hundreds of passes with it and ran the valves on it. Is about all I did. And I've had some setbacks this year because the whole time I had it, it would float the valves. Like, y'all can hear me better now, right?
Oh yeah, you sound great. Yep.
Okay.
Excellent.
It was floating the valves at, if I'd get about 7,500, it had some big, heavy stainless valves in it. And so I said, well, when I put new rods and stuff in it, I want to put some titanium valves in it because it wasn't done making power. And so I put some valves in it, and I wanted to put a bigger push rod in it. It had a 3/8 push rod in that thing, and they were flexing and cutting the head gaskets. And, I put a bigger push rod in it. You got to run a taller lifter. It turned into a whole ordeal to get it to do what I wanted to do with it. And it did great, but I don't even remember what I was talking about earlier. I think I was talking about them rocker arms. I just sent them intake rockers and had them rebuilt and had new rollers put in them, and every one of them come apart after 4 dyno pulls and 2 passes. And I've been waiting on some rocker arms. They're different than any. We sent rocker arms to Manton, to Jessel, to T&D, and my rocker arms are somehow different than every other Hemi rocker arm. There's something different about where the adjuster hole is in them, so I had to send them back to Indy. And I got a text Wednesday saying that they accepted payment for them, so I expect to see them any day now. So.
Chris Cruz 103, yes it is, a Hemi Dart. If you've not checked out his channel, Unfinished Project, if you don't mind, put up the link for Michael Yielding's channel and check it out. And we've got Big James in the house. What's going
on, everybody?
All right. And hello, Sarah Marie. Thanks for joining. So we've been just having a little roundtable asking some interesting questions, and because heads up racing is so different, than bracket and what a lot of people are used to, and there's interesting questions, at least for me anyway. One that I have for all of you guys, and we'll just maybe start with Dallas. You know how it works. Life gives you the test first and the lesson later, right? And sometimes we pay a lot of tuition doing things. In trying to make fast cars, what would you tell everybody is something where if you had it to do over again, or something you've learned over, if everybody here has been doing this 20 years or more, what would you suggest to somebody? Say, here's an expensive lesson or something that I would do different going back in trying to make fast cars.
I don't know where to even start with this one. Gosh, it's like first things first, lessons that I've learned. you don't try to serve two masters. It's either it's a race car or it's a street car. You don't do both. It'll never be good at either one. The other thing is you need to sit down before you even spend a single dollar to take one bolt off. And you need to identify what goal you want to attain and be realistic about it, right? And then you create the steps to get to that goal, because it's the only way you're really going to do it, because you'll get sidetracked when you run into this problem and you end up deviating, and you'll sacrifice what you really wanted for what you can get or what you can afford. And you just need to start doing those things. You got to identify them, and you got to buy those parts if that's what you want to do, and don't deviate, don't sacrifice, and don't get in a hurry. If it's something like you're going to build a tall deck, big block Chevy, yeah, you're probably not going to have a problem finding parts for that thing. But if you build something off brand, or especially like you're like the Nelsons down there building your inline 6-cylinders, you're pretty much a slave to whatever parts that are available, or you make them yourself. So don't be afraid to make them. I mean, if you break your new set of rocker arms that you made, or you're hold down for something, guess what? Nobody else makes one, so you're still the best. So that's kind of how I look at it. But yeah, that's the big thing is you want to have a plan. You want to identify where you want to go, and then not spend unnecessary money on things that are going to just drag you down.
I like the nature of this question. So rolling it to Professor P, you've got quite a resume of doing this stuff for a long time. What about you?
Me and Dallas talk about this a lot on our live chats. Basically, I'm with him on this. Is find out what you want to do. Is this a street car or a race car? That's always the question. What are you doing? Is this are you going to drive this every day, or is this something just a weekend car? I would, and also too, find out what class do you want to run. Do you want to run like he was talking about, running in 420s? Well, you got to have a big checkbook for that. Like, what are you legitimately want to do? You want to do NA class? Find out what you want to do first, then build the car. And look, I've done it. I did it with a 66 start. If you're not familiar with Mopars, 66 is probably the worst car you could ever start with. And it was a Mopar. So one advice is I like being different, but don't be that different, because there's nothing for this car, and everything I had to build on this, I had to build. So, yeah, don't be too different.
And for those in the chat not familiar, a 66 dart is 2 inches narrower than the 67 to 76. So if you've ever had the horrible experience of putting headers on a 67 to 76 dart, just imagine doing that with an even narrower engine bay.
Yes. And it's got its own suspension in the front end as far as steering, drag, link, and everything. It's its own animal. Yeah.
Big James, what about you? You've done a lot of stuff. What are things that you might do different in your quest for speed to do it over again?
Probably just race within your means. I see a lot of guys, they try to race outside their budget, and they'll start projects and never finish them, or they don't have the time to devote to go testing like needs to be done to do it right. So if you don't have the abilities to to go every weekend and put forth the effort, it's going to be really hard to be competitive in a class. So just money wise and time wise, whatever your constraints are, just keep it fun, because if it's not fun, you're not going to keep on with it. I mean, it's a progress all the time, and this stuff's always changing. There's new tricks of the week and new parts, and it's hard to keep up sometimes. So I mean, I don't knock bracket racers. A lot of heads up guys kind of frown on that stuff, but they do what they can, and they have fun doing it, and that's the main thing, I feel like.
I know Andy Wood, that has the truck Casper, told me it is fun running, a quick Ford truck and having a Hemi and all that stuff. But he said, I never have more fun than when I would drive to the track, take my slicks out of the trunk.
Yep.
And because it wasn't about ultimately the numbers you put on the board, it's just how much fun you're having. And chasing records and stuff was a lot harder. It was a lot more work. What would you say, Michael Yielding? You've obviously been working on building something for a long time.
Yeah, I would. If I could go back and start over, I would say don't, like they said, pick a class, pick what you want to do with it, and stick with it. But I would probably don't rush into it. There's a lot of things I probably did that I was like, well, that'll be good enough for what it's going to be right now. And then, now you kind of get to a point where you're like, well, man, I need to go back, and there's a lot of stuff I'd like to go back and redo back when it was the right time to do it, and it would have been done right the first time. But I know a lot of guys that do a lot of grudge racing stuff, and they run this overdrive class and stuff, and it changes every year. I mean, there's people bought whole new cars and started over because if their time has ever been shown or anything, then that car's done. They won't even let them race anymore. So it's crazy to me. That ain't for me. But I would say pick something and stick with it. Like they said, if it's a race car, let it be a race car, and just keep driving towards whatever goal it is you originally set out for. Because you start changing it up, and you don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah, you end up broken or a bunch of parts that don't work together.
Yeah. Yep. Well, my problem is anything that's really worth going back and upgrading the way I want to upgrade it, I'm going to be out of racing for a while because I don't really have the budget. So, my deal now is I don't want to take off a year or more to go back and do something different, rebuild a whole different engine configuration with a turbo setup on it or something like I want to do. But I don't want to take off a year from racing, so I'm going to keep rolling.
By the way, Unfinished Project has put up a link to that interview with Tim McCamus. One of my favorite Pro Mod moments, Brett Kepner interviewing him under a sheet, and that literally happened. But anyway, you can check that out at your leisure. How about you, Nelsons? You've got a very long road of a lot of cool stuff. Have you ever... I had the privilege of going to the Nelsons place this spring, and when you look at what they have there, it's amazing how many hours, an incalculable number of hours of work. It's not just smarts, it's work. And so you guys have a lot of hindsight to put on anything you've ever done. What would you say? What kind of, or make it an advice, what would you say about if you had some things to do over again?
I have one.
Well, I'll let you go first.
I would say trust your gut. We've had a lot of situations where we've either been led down the wrong path or not seen warning signs that we should have listened to. Something didn't feel right, and we were like, "This isn't right. We should have stopped." Or we've had situations where that runner is too small. There's no way it's going to work. And you're like, well, I mean, other guys are doing it, but, and then you find out it's too small and it's not going to work. I would say trust your gut. That would be my advice.
For me, it's hard to answer that question. I agree with everything that the professor and Dallas both said. Don't drive your street or race car in the sense of, separate the two. A race car is a race car, and it sounds a little odd to say that because we participate in dragon drives. But, when we had, and this is before Calvin got interested, was heavily involved in a lot of racing. Picking a class and sticking with it until you succeed is probably the single most important thing that you can do. My interests are all over the place. So once we have gotten to the point where we've realized success, there's an eye is open looking for the next event. When we started land speed racing, we set 18 records, and I'm not satisfied. I want to set 100. We've won many, many races. I'm not satisfied. I want to win another 100. The fire in my belly is still there despite some of the setbacks that we've had. But, everybody echoed this, that, pick what you want and go after it. And the one thing that I encourage young people that don't have the resources to get to the top level right away is don't beat yourself up. Don't try and outspend your wallet trying to get to the end. Learn your trade, learn what the other guys are doing, because one of the biggest mistakes that folks make is not developing good strategies on their maintenance. Be it your valve spring checks to making sure that you don't have something more catastrophic starting to develop as a failure point. When you're performing at the upper level, the hours that it takes to maintain what you're doing is very high. And anybody who's class raced can truly appreciate the hours that go in. You know, everybody sees those few seconds on the track and you look like a hero. But the reality is to make those few seconds work effectively, you're putting in 20, 30 hours through the week trying to make sure that you're ready for that next event. And that's some of the things that we need to make sure that our younger guys are paying attention to. Is it's the off-track preparation that makes the difference. And it makes your dollars go a lot further.
100%.
Wow. Very interesting. I like that a lot. This is a fun panel, which I knew it would be. I think this is really great. So obviously we're going to do a chip draw, you know, to set up a ladder, right? But that aside, is there any particular type of call outs, any particular matches or anything within this panel here? Is there anybody here that wants a particular piece of somebody else? I mean, it could happen organically with the chip draw. It also could be a call out. I'm just kind of curious. We hear some of that on Wednesday. We
Levi, but he's not.
Oh
on.
yeah, oh yeah. We see some of this. And by the way, for those in the chat who might not be familiar, on Wednesday nights, the Wednesday night Tech Talk, you'll see Dallas and Professor P. They have a great show over there on Wednesdays. I'm usually slinging the mod wrench in the chat, but make sure to check that out. But we see a lot of talk of match races and stuff over there on Wednesdays. But you guys here, I mean, we see a lot of call outs and match races from everybody else. What about you guys? Is there anything particular you want? Or are you pretty much just going after whoever's left standing?
What did the duck ever register?
Not yet. He's still circling the boat. The word is if he doesn't break anything next weekend, that's what I hear.
That would
Mine's
be
already
the
broken. I'm just trying to get everything back together.
I would like to see the Duck and Michael. That would be a good race because they're about the same speed. That would be a good race.
I've run him on no prep before. I'd like to get him on a prep track 100%.
Mm-hmm.
All reports out of Sykeston is the track is really good.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, so Possum, I talked to Possum yesterday. He has a consultant that he has that helps him do the recipe out there. They've switched back to PJ1, and they have stayed on top of the track all year, so it should be a vastly different track than what we had last year.
That's good.
Good. Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, the funny part is, and I'm not naming any names or anything, but probably the one person who complained about the track the most last year is a guy who ran his personal best. Go figure.
Who was that?
I already just said I'm not going to start that. But
Man,
no, I thought that was kind of funny.
Well,
No,
I didn't even know that. Like,
no, the guys who are quick are like, well, we all have to run the same track, and we all have to adapt, and you know, and that's what happened.
I just kept tightening it up, and Andrew helped me get it even tighter when I couldn't get it any tighter, and that's the only way I could get the dang thing to hook up.
Well, you're leaving wheels up, so I mean, you know. But anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. But I hear the track is really good. So this brings up an interesting point. So in the small tire stuff, you see definite big divide between people running highly prep tracks and the no prep thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how does your strategies change depending on the track?
The
How much
tire
time
for
do you
one.
take out?
This would be a good one for yielding, I think.
Well, a slick versus a radial for one. I know a couple guys that run a pro bracket on no prep and do okay, but I mean, you really want a slick. Your suspension really needs to be set up differently. You know, you don't really want to try to get after the separation in the rear end on the no prep stuff. You want it to squat. From what I've seen, be successful. I've done a little bit of it, and I always tell them I'm not really trying to go slower, because you end up going slower to run no prep most of the time. Like a lot of the stuff I run around here, if you know, the no prep tracks, I'm running slower. You know, I could be top of the hunt, but be, you know, running half a second slower than I'm running on a prep track. But I haven't wanted to reset up my car for all that, and then I really don't want to wreck it either. I like to think that I'd get out of it if things were getting sketchy, but I've had somebody right beside me in the other lane before, and sometimes I don't get out of it. So
That's a good question too. What do you think, Big James? What do you think about track prep versus no prep? Because that's a thing now. That wasn't a thing at one time.
When I started, it was the radial stuff was getting really big, and the no prep came along, and it's cool to watch, but kind of like what Michael said, I can't afford to tear my stuff up, so I just rather watch than participate. To be honest, it is exciting for sure, especially for the fans. It's just so unpredictable, and you know, it's kind of like when the Outlaw 10.5 stuff first started. That's why it was so popular. They was running on mediocre tracks on tires that had been untested. It was kind of like, you know, the original no prep. I mean, obviously they was putting stuff down, but just the excitement of it was a big crowd draw.
I had the privilege of going to Frank Hawley's school a few years ago, and he was describing to us what the state of track preparation was in the 70s.
Yeah.
And it just blows your mind to think what these guys would run top fuel on in the 70s.
Throw some rosin down and get after it.
It was driving on ice, and it just blows my mind.
Well, there's a video here on YouTube that's primarily it was the Grump versus Dick Landy.
Yes.
They were at like St. Air Dragway or something, maybe Ontario.
They're out there with brooms.
Yeah, he went out and put his own track prep down and did like 4 burnouts and 3 dry hops each time. And it's like, it's by far different today. And we got it easy.
I was watching an interview one time. I can't remember who it was. It may have been Don Garlitz, but he was talking about when people originally started doing burnouts. They didn't even do burnouts for like years and years and years. And then they just stumbled up on it one day, and it was magic ever since. But just to think to get out there in a front engine dragster, not even do a burnout or anything, and just get it.
Yeah. That was Pat Minnick in the Chi-Town Hustler. Was the first one to do a burnout, and it was just for exhibition only. They just went out and flattened it, right? And just blew the tires off, and the crowd went nuts. And after that, everybody did a burnout. So,
but that brings me to an interesting question. So there's different strategies, different talk. People like different burnouts and so forth. What do you guys think makes for a good burnout? What would you recommend to people? How do you know what kind of burnout you need for your car? How do you figure that out? What goes into setting up your recipes for the burnout itself?
A lot of it's the track, the car. You know, if you're trying to showboat or if you're trying to win, you know, it's a lot goes into it. A lot of guys will burn out right through the staging beams and rip all the rubber off, and they just set themselves up for failures. I mean, depends on the tire as well. And a slick versus a radial. There's a lot of variance there. And there's different ways to skin a cat. Everybody's opinion is different as well.
Now that answer is as different as what do you do between no prep and prep tracks.
Yeah.
You know, you got to look and see if there's rubber out there. You've got to look to see, you know, if there's something within the first 60 feet that you know you're going to have an issue with. You're going to want to get that car up on the tires, front end up, and drive yourself over it to keep traction so you don't, you know, bust loose with the tires. On no prep, you know, you're driving the tires down. Your nose is not coming up the way that you would if you have good track with something in the first 60 feet that you got to get across. So you got to be able to read your track. But many tracks don't let you do a burnout across the starting line, and that needs to be part of your decision process too. If you can lay down your own rubber and you're in the right conditions, you want to do that. If it's 120-degree track temperature, it's the last thing you want to do. You gotta pay attention to that track temperature too, because you could just peel up the rubber that's there, and that's a problem. So, a lot of times we'll shoot the track temperature just to figure out what kind of burnout do we need to do, and you got to see if you need to lay down your own rubber.
Usually pretty conservative on the burnout because I've
Usually
last longer. But the thing was, like last year, I had put those. See, I couldn't get a 28 by 10.5. Before, I always ran 30 by 9s, and everybody complained, right? And 30 by 9 is the sportsman slick, and so it's like, all right, fine, you guys are crying. I'm running a 30 by 9. I'll go buy, put some 28 10.5s on it, and we'll do it, and no more complaining. And I couldn't get some 28 10.5, so I got some 28 10. And I only had like 0 passes on them. So you generally got to break them in before you even go. You want to get some passes on it so you can get the slick like directionally set. And I just did a gonzo burnout first time out last year, like gonzo off the rev limiter, high gear, the whole 9 yards. Through the lights and everything. I was listening to James and Big James talk about like, oh yeah, you don't go through the lights. That's fine. I went through all the lights, the 60 foots and the 330. So I didn't care. But but I figured if you're going to do it anyway, you might as well just make a show of it. Make people want to be there. I think, drag racing, that's the thing some of it's lost because of this stuff. We sacrifice ET, not ET. We sacrifice the showmanship for the sake of ET now. And it gives the fan nothing to watch. That's why bracket racing, in my opinion, is the truest form of drag racing left, where anybody can compete against anybody. The problem is, though, the way it's set up, it's always at the stripe. Where's the stands at? The stands are all the way at the front. And everybody's got delay boxes and throttle stops and all the other BS that makes it just undigestible, right? And it takes away all the fun. And that was, when I built this T-Bird, the whole idea was, I was going after 990 index super gas for NHRA, and that's what I wanted to run. Except for I realized that all those guys were running throttle stops and delay boxes, and no one had ever ran it this wide open on the motor for 30 years. So I went up to Fontana. It was the first time I got a chance to do it, and literally when they called the class, people were leaving. They were like walking out of the stands, like, this is so boring, I don't even want to watch it. Well, luckily I was like 3 cars in. 3 pairs in, and man, I got up there, did my burnout, staged it, and let it eat. And I mean, this thing was 3 feet in the air, and there was people cheering on the like, whoa, they hadn't seen that in that class in 30 years, and they stopped, and everybody took a look. Like, that was the thing, is all it took was one different perspective, and you changed the way everybody looked at the class. And I think that's really what we're missing, is a lot of that. It's taken a lot of the spectator enjoyment out of the sport. So then you don't get people in the stands. And when you don't get people in the stands, you can't pay the big payouts. When you can't pay the big payouts, you don't get the big races. So, I mean, it all works together. It's all hand in hand. I think that's the way it needs to be done, my opinion. But big burnouts are cool. It gets everybody kind of in there. But yeah, it does goon up the track. Probably pretty easy, but fun. Yeah, fun.
What say you, Professor P?
I'm going to tell you this. The first thing I do is I try to keep all the rubber off of my inner fender wells. So when you do your burnout, you don't put water up on there. So that way, when you're rolling up, that water's not dripping back onto your tire. But for me, I'm with the Nelsons on this. I have a temperature gun. I go up there and I check the temperature, and that tells me how much burnout I really need. to heat up the tire, so that way I know how it's going to adhere to there. And then before, I'll go out and check track prep. I'll just walk it real quick and just kind of see where it's at. But that really is all you're really trying to do is just heat up the tire, so that way it gets traction, and it's just done with heat. If the heat's in the track, then never the heat's in the tire. That's just how I judge it.
If you guys
both
were
engineers, you guys are both engineers, right?
a lot of engineers here,
Yes.
yeah. Now that number 2810.5, I guess, was somewhat arbitrarily picked. If you guys were going to pick a spec tire, and you think that you could be the one to pick the spec tire everybody would run on, what size? What tire would it be?
30x9.
30x9.
That's the one I did. That's the one I chose too. That's the ultimate. You can put a 30x9 under a Nova. You can put a 30x9 under a Falcon.
It's a dark sport with a half-inch trim.
Yeah,
You can't even fit a 2810.5 under a dart
Yeah.
without mini tubbing it.
That's right.
Yep. 30x9 will fit though.
Well,
Well,
6.5 will rub if you don't run enough pressure. I can tell you that too.
Hell yeah. I don't know if you need anything bigger than a 2810.5 anymore. I got buddies going. He went 370s last weekend in Texas on 2810.5, and the record at our local track was same guy went 407 at like 186 mile an hour on a 2810.5 radial.
Sorry about that.
You're fine.
30x9 slick gives you a tuning window this wide.
Yes.
With a 2810.5, your tuning window gets like that, and you're spending way more money on shocks and springs. That 30x9 takes a lot of cost out of the game and puts a lot more fun in the game.
Well,
They
it's been
actually allow
proven.
us to run a 315 in small tire, which is a 29.5 10.5. But I don't know. I think I know like one guy that does it. Everybody else wants to be gangsters, I think.
I used to run way back in the day. Down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, they used to have a class or a sanctioned body or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Organizer called ORSCA, Outlaw Streetcar Racing Association, or OSCA, whatever. They had it. I ran the 26x8 slicks.
Yes, I was just going to say that same thing. I had the same class.
Yeah, and I did those out in. I tried that one time with the high horsepower cleaver in my car, and I just threw the underwear away. I mean, it was a sketchy ride. That thing was all over the place to make your butt pucker. I mean, it was bad. I couldn't hardly drive it.
I've thought about trying them. We have that Titans of 10.5 event that comes around, and they have a 235 class, which is a
Oh, yeah, that's it.
26.8. That's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about trying it because I don't know if I could run what I'm running. You know, I'd have to figure some stuff out. But if I could actually make it run what it's running now, I'd be pretty good in the hunt.
Yeah, it's all about the hit on that one. That would be like where you'd put the start retard on.
Yeah, you ain't gonna get the hit probably.
Right, yeah, you're going to be out 60 foot before it just gets the timing being normal. You know?
Oh, for sure.
So we have a lot of different approaches to making power here. I mean, I know Dallas likes, he likes NA, likes nitrous. Professor P is a nitrous junkie. The Nelsons are all about, turbo. Yielding's making power NA and has nitrous. What kind of experience do you guys have with all the different kinds? Now, I know, Professor P, because of what you do every day, you get a lot of sampler platter of all these different things. But
Yeah.
if there's a combination that you haven't played with that you really want to, what would it be? Because, I mean, like the Nelsons are known, at least in the YouTube circles, as being turbo gurus, right?
Yeah.
They know other stuff, and they're getting ready to show it with the car behind them. So what would be if a combination you haven't played with you really want to?
Blank check or not blank check? Do I have to do it on my budget?
You can make anything you want out of that question.
Okay, it would be turbos. It would definitely be turbos because it's a technically free-ish horsepower supercharger to put 1,700 horsepower to the. Let's just say you're putting 1,500 to the tire, right? So that means you got to make 1,700 at the engine, but then remember you got to turn the supercharger. So then you got to make 2,000 to put that 1,500 to the tire, right? Because you have all these parasitic losses. The turbos, it's you make 1,700 to make 1,500. So there's a lot less wear and tear, and it's a lot more tunable. I would think with the computers the way they are, the tuning is a lot easier. For me, it's always been nitrous because it's at the time it was cheap horsepower, and that's what I could afford. And I was able to, most of the tracks weren't really a quarter mile as far as street racing. It was really kind of eighth mile. So I was out and gone on them, and then they would try to ramp things in really too fast, and then they would go up, and then I would usually win that way. So I just happen to like the nitrous for that reason. So, but for me, it would definitely be turbos, 100%.
What about you, Dallas?
I'm a nitrous junkie. I love this stuff way back when it came out. Well, I guess not when it came out. When I got into it was early 2000s. There wasn't the progressive systems. It was just a plate with on and off. Right? And I'd really like to play with nitrous now with the progressive stuff, especially with EFI and progressive stuff, because the tunability on it was just amazing, where you could bring it all in. You could bring it in with the timing. There's so much adjustability to it. Way back when was like, you got up the timing light, you pulled 8, 10, 12 degrees out, and you went up there, and it was just like getting smacked in the head with a hammer. That was it. I mean, it was just on or off. And you'd blow the tires off, or you didn't. And it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. My wallet didn't enjoy it with the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing going on because, man, I mean, rear ends and transmissions and rear ends was my biggest enemy. I tried to destroy them every week, and I did a pretty dang good job, and I got tired of doing that, and that's why I took the nitrous off. But with the progressiveness of the nitrous systems now and the tunability with the EFI systems, I think there's a lot to be gained in with the nitrous. And I think you can almost treat it like a turbo where it's so progressive, it's actually soft on stuff now instead of just being so much of a, like I said, a hammer to the head. I mean, it was like really night and day difference when that thing came on. I'd like to play with that, and I think there's a lot to be done with that. But that being said, I think I'm on the whole panel here. I'm like maybe the only guy that's running the NA car in a whole entire 28-10-5 deal. So, I'm the only one with 3 speeds. I don't know what the Nelsons have in there. They might have a turbo 400 in the big block Chevy car. You got 3 speeds too.
Yep.
So yeah, that you have to have it for the torque multiplication with an NA car. You have to. There's just no way around it. And then where you make up for that with running a glide is you run all that nitrous that makes all the torque multiplication happen with nitrous oxide. Because if you didn't know this, I mean, your 400 shots making 600 foot-pounds of torque. So that's the big deal. Yeah, it's a whole different game with nitrous today than it was. I never wanted to do the turbo. I was never into the turbo. It's just really hard on my wallet by looking at the price of it to begin with. I guess nitrous, you pay for it in the rear. So, yeah.
We'll pop that question to the others that are here on the panel, but I do want to get Miss Catchy's question there, and we'll go to Professor P for that one. They don't call you the professor for nothing. Why not pure oxygen as a supplement instead of opposed to nitrous?
Oh, because it explodes. I mean, how are you going to contain it?
Right.
Yeah.
That's akin to what the space shuttle runs on.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it much safer.
It works good in external combustion engines.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, what if you could run a combination you've never run? You'd mentioned the turbos before, but what would it be? That, or would it be something else? A combination you've never gotten to work with?
I'd love to do it. I'd love to do any of them. I always, for some reason, I always seem to gravitate to the like Pro Charger or Screw Blower, just because I want to. But realistically, what I'll probably end up doing is a turbo setup. I mean, I do like with a turbo setup that you can actually build a pretty mild motor, and then you make your horsepower with the I mean, you can build a pretty low maintenance. You can have a hydraulic roller deal and make big power with a turbo car.
Exactly.
What about
And
you?
you don't
Big?
have to make that much power if you don't want to.
Oh yeah, it's adjustable.
Yeah, it's adjustable power.
Big James, a combination you've never run before but would like to.
Screw blower for sure. It's just insanity. Like a PSIC rotor, instant torque. It's nuts.
There's just
Just
nothing that
just to
sounds
stand
like
around
that.
one of those cars is to hear it do a burnout and stuff is it's just so violent. I love it.
I remember being at NMCA races a long time ago, and of everybody there, every car on the property, you could never mistake Bruce Kimmons' car because he had a big roots blower, and you could hear that thing from his pit space anywhere, anytime that car was moving. There's nothing that sounds like that. Pretty awesome.
I guess I'm a little spoiled because I've done a lot of that with the nitromethane. So I've seen the like Top Fuel and Funny Car. I've done a lot of camshafts and worked with those guys setting up their engines. And yeah, I agree with James that there's nothing like that when that thing fires off. But yeah, I've been around it. I think it's awesome. But something I never did. I'd like to do turbos. But yeah, I agree.
Nelson's, what have you not tried that you would like to try? Any kind of bucket list combinations? Anything you want to do?
I've been involved with nitrous back when serial number 0001 was something your neighbor had and you had number 2. I remember all the original early stuff, and you could make a lot of parts with the early kits, and it's come a long way. Had blowers, have had blowers with nitrous, have had the turbo stuff, and I love it all. But I think what I want to try the most is blown alcohol or blown alcohol and nitromethane. But something that's really going to take it over the top for me.
Yeah, I would say I got a little bit of a taste of the. I'll say the nitrous stuff. I've never really been a big fan of filling bottles, like so much so that I don't even like to put CO2 boost control on the turbo stuff because I don't like filling bottles. So that's kind of why I'm not a fan of the nitrous stuff. But I did get a brief taste of the supercharged stuff with my Studebaker, and I'm starting to really enjoy that. So I would love to explore that a little bit more. So that would probably be my answer. I have this. Well, you guys will appreciate it, but I want to do an old school Roots supercharger at some point. They're just so cool. They just sound cool, and they're big and obnoxious, and they stick up real high. And
With methanol?
I mean, sure.
I love you, son.
Yeah, that would probably be my answer.
Right on, right on. Well, guys, if you have any questions in the chat, you got them cornered for a little while. Feel free to ask any questions. But we've got a great panel tonight. I will give out a quick reminder since we have a few minutes left. So this is our panel, 28-10-5 Heads Up Racing at the No Name Nationals, run on an instant green tree. Our ET record at the No Name Nationals is a 5:52. Pretty good chance that could get reset this year. Maybe.
100% chance.
We'll see what happens there. But you
Listen,
gotta
guys,
tell me
I'm
where
running
to
on
come.
hopes and dreams right now. I don't have the subscribers, but I can tell you if I can get there, that record is going down. I can promise you that.
You've heard Michael Yielding call a shot there. So he has 368 subscribers as of the beginning of this live. If you're not yet subscribed to Michael Yielding's channel, please go over there and check him out. You might go there for the recommendation, but you'll stay for the dart. It's a cool channel, cool guy. Also, I'll put this out real quick. Next week, we're going to have the bracket contenders. So we'll see folks probably like just Mopar Joe and Barkley and fellas running the bracket. the Friday bracket. So come out for that. And then we're going to have our logistics live on the 13th. That will be the last live stream before the No Name Nationals. And we'll talk about, camping schedule, Lambert's, how and where and why and who you need to see for this, that, or the other. All of those good questions that you need to know before your trip. That will be Friday the 13th. But with that, does anybody in the chat have any questions? It's been just a blast with this panel. Colleen says, "Are you coming regardless of your sub count?" Colleen Tebow asks to Michael.
To me, I plan on it. I've talked to Joe about it. I said I've already registered, so I got 2 passes. So yeah, probably so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'll tell you, you will get the second half of your 500 much quicker than you got the first half, and you definitely have time. And so put out at least a short every day, at least a short a day, and I think you got it in the bag.
Well, everyone here can attest. If you see Dizzy Izzy in the chat, Dizzy Izzy showed up like 130 subs short the first year. And we just told him, hey, man, show up with your car, start panhandling subs. He had them by the end of the first day.
He had literally had a cardboard sign at the gate, panhandling subs. And it was great content. I mean, it was just fun. And you can do that too. Just show up with your cardboard sign. Please help me race the No Name Mag. It's good content. It's good fun. And you'll get a lot of visitors and a lot of spectators will say, oh, hey, yeah, I want to see that. And it's just good fun. It's a good community building exercise.
Has anybody heard from Redbeard?
I was going to ask the same on that.
I've not heard much from Daniel at all. He's been laying
A couple
pretty low.
Facebook posts, and he was working on the Hemi, but I don't think he was going to get it done. I'm not sure.
Was he there last year? I didn't get to make it.
No,
last
he
year.
didn't come last year. But he also had pulled that what was it, 440 or 440 cubic inch small block and put that big block in it, or I don't remember.
He had a predator wedge.
Yeah, he went to a Hemi this time, and then he got hung up in the parts debacle where you couldn't get stuff.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah.
So since Michael has posed this question, we'll go to the pro at doing subs the right way in a short amount of time. Big James, the James and James show. I bet a lot of people would have lost a lot of bets. James has to have set a record for the most dynamic, moving a channel forward and gaining your subs. What advice would you give to Michael? Because you know how it's done.
Just hammer it out, man. As many shorts as you got, as quick as you can. If you find something that does good, just go in that direction. If people like certain cars, just keep posting that same one, something different about it. It's people kind of gravitate if you got a catalog of something. If drag racing does good for you, do that. If motor stuff does good for you, do that. Just pick a niche, and every day post something every day.
I hear you.
Shorts do good. That's how we got it. Shorts was our big thing. And then we started getting some views on our regular videos after that. But shorts definitely pulled us through.
One thing I've noticed that everybody here has in common that's a big contributor to their successes individually is attitude. That is just so huge. I can't understate that. If you don't have a good winning attitude, you won't rally through the bad times to get to the next good times. And I can just say that about every single person on this panel. It's that good attitude. You'll notice that in every one of them, and that is no small part of their success. For whatever that's worth from this seat.
Another thing too is don't be scared to jump in other people's lives and get your name out there and let them know what you're doing. Yep. That way, that's a big help as well.
Sure is. Goes a long way for exposure in the community too. So even being in the chat, just swing by, say hi. You never know who's watching. The more branches you put on the tree, the more subscribers you're going to get. You definitely can still do this. Big James, what were your final numbers? Do you know how many days?
Or 13 days, something like that.
13, and how many subs in 13 days?
I think we started off with, we had like 20 subs. I just had a generic channel, and then I changed the name, and we got it pretty quick. And then we got the next 500 in like half the time of that, and then I just let it roller coaster from there. But I kind of gave up there for a little bit on my channel. I had a little kid and everything else, and got married, and now I'm back at it. So I went to the first No Name Nationals. I didn't get to come last year, but I'm ready to come back and be part of it.
I remember that live when you guys came on and announced. John and I were doing a live at my office, and you guys came out and said, "Hey, we're announcing that we're gonna do it." I said, "You guys got 2 weeks left." I said, "There's no way this is gonna happen." And I was the first one to eat my foot, because I mean, it literally was like, "Hey, in a week you guys were done." Like, what? There's no way.
Well, Big Block 402, we worked together at the time. He talked me into it. He's like, "Man, you can do it if you want to." And I was like, "I don't know." And he said, "Just do it, man. Come on." And I was like, "All right, I'm all in."
Well, you guys killed it there for that couple of weeks before the event.
No doubt.
You had the monkey bike videos.
There's a lot going on. It was a fun time for sure.
Dropping content every day.
That helps.
And I'll tell you, I would suggest to Michael, go back and look at those videos that Big James would have done in September of 2022 and get a feel for how a guy takes a channel from the ground to 500 like that. And he did it all organically too. Like, there wasn't, one big shout out, one block of subs or something from here and there. That was all done just organically. Really impressive.
Yeah, but he was also racing. That's what was cool, is he did a lot of videos he was racing like everywhere, but did all these videos from completely different tracks each time, like George Ray's and Beacon, and pretty much all the tracks right around that area. Was nailing them. And
yeah, I went to Jackson and Dyersburg. I was going everywhere I could and taking as much video as I could.
People are eating it up
there.
You got to be pretty close to me then.
I'm in Western Kentucky in Paducah.
Okay, I've been to George Ray's many times.
Hey, I used to work down in Blytheville.
Okay.
Where are you at?
I'm in Central Arkansas, just north of Little Rock. So
okay,
our local stuff's. I actually go down to Louisiana, Twin City, and Prescott and Centerville.
I've been to Centerville actually.
Yeah, I go to Centerville quite a bit. If I get my parts, I'll be there this weekend.
Yeah, it's been many years, but yeah, I've heard of Twin Cities. I had never been there though.
Good track, very good track.
Any nostalgic tracks that you guys really like? It can just be the ambiance or whatever, but any certain reason you might like a certain track.
Open or still or closed?
Beaver Springs. That's our home away from home. It's a 100-mile haul to get there, but it is our favorite track to go to. We're very blessed up here. We are surrounded with good tracks. We've got Cecil, Mason-Dixon, Maple Grove, Numidia, a lot of good tracks really close to us, but we go twice as far to get up to Beaver Springs. It's got that away from home feel.
What about you, Dallas?
I don't really have a favorite around here.
Oh, no, anywhere.
Well, I would have to say these have got to be open tracks, right? I always wanted to go down to George Ray's. I know I'd probably die in my car there, but George Ray's.
I want to take my Studebaker there.
Did you? I think it would be cool there. Yeah, because I heard it's literally like a piece of road that they.
It hadn't changed since the '60s.
Yeah, that's why I want to go. I mean, it's like the legit, real deal thing. It's about as close as you're going to get to 3 yards, mf'er, And so
yeah, I went down it in my car before. It's bumpy.
Yeah. Oh, it looks rough.
It looks on the satellite. It looks bumpy. I could only imagine in person.
It's fun.
But the wooden guardrails do it for me. So I always wanted to go down that track.
I ain't no guardrail. It's a railroad tie.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it is? It's a railroad tie?
Stuck in the ground.
Oh, you get stuck on that.
What about you, Michael? What is that track for you?
George Ray's is one of my favorite. I don't even run it, but it's one of my favorite tracks. The atmosphere up there is great. I mean, tons of people show up. They do like a free entry small tire thing almost every Friday night, and there'll be like 40 cars show up and run it. And it is fun to go and watch. I had a buddy that ran it for years. I mean, it's pretty well a no prep track if you're trying to run small tire up there. But it's great track to go to, great atmosphere. Probably my favorite track that I've been to is Extreme Raceway Park in Texas. That's probably one of the nicest facilities that I've ever gone to, and I hadn't even got to take my car there yet. That if you've never been to that track, check it out.
What about you, Professor P?
In California, it'd be Famoso, and here, I would say probably Jackson. Jackson's only 45 minutes, maybe an hour from me, so I like that. It's a good, and it's a good atmosphere. Now I do have Holly Springs, which is like 20 minutes down the road here, but it's not as friendly of a place as Jackson is.
Just Mopar Joe says, all right, Mopar people, George Ray's is nearly exactly an hour from Sykeston. They'll be open the day after No Name Nationals. So while I'm over there cleaning up, squaring up, accounting, settling up, and all that good stuff, you guys can be getting your fill of George Ray's.
No.
Now, I was supposed to go to George Ray's with Joe's a few years ago. We got rained out. That's on my bucket list.
I got something that's higher priority than that, so I'll be there. But I got to go get unmarried. So that's what I'm shooting for.
Yeah.
What about so do you have any of these tracks that because all you've raced a lot, so this is an interesting panel, probably more racers on this panel than I'm accustomed to whenever I've had a lot of guests, and that is tracks that have unusual characteristics, whether you think it's charming, weird, dangerous, neat, whatever it is. Like KD has the extreme uphill shutdown, and my old home track had a catwalk across it in a bizarre place with a mesh floor. Strange things like that. What will be a track like that?
Amarillo has a crosswalk going across right behind the starting line. That is the coolest thing.
Oh, Indianapolis used to have that too.
George Ray's, you have to turn around on the track. There's not even a return road, really. You got to turn around on the track and go back and find it.
Do you come back, or do they have Jersey barriers or anything? Or are you just coming back in the?
It just ends down there, and you drove past the shutdown when you finished, and you got to turn around and go back.
Oh wow!
Wow. You better hope someone gets the memo.
Yeah,
They'll figure it out quick.
For me,
go ahead.
I'll say for me the track is I just recently went to. It was Pickwick. It's actually shorter than an 8th mile. It's like 590 foot, and it's flat, and then the finish line is uphill. So you're going uphill, and then you go across the finish line, then you crest a hill, and then you go down the other side. It literally has a hump in it, and it's not like it's like a gradual. You can visually see it. So it's an uphill finish line.
Isn't Holly Springs that way?
No, Holly Springs is flat, but once you cross,
go uphill, or you used to before they redid the track. You used to go uphill
Okay.
on the.
yeah, it's
I haven't
flat.
been there since the tornado went through.
I haven't either. I haven't been there in years.
Last time I was down there, job
organized.
still alive.
One last thing I'll put to each of you guys, just because I think it's interesting. I like to end on a high note. And this can be for each of you, because again, you've each done a lot of racing. What is that one? What is your best come from behind, snatching victory from the jaws of defeat moment that you've ever had in all your racing or building or whatever days? It could be the impossible odds thing. It could be the Hail Mary shot. It could be the I wasn't supposed to win, but I did. I can't believe I got that fixed time. Whatever it is, what would that be for each of you? We'll start with P, and we'll go around the panel there.
It's when I got the 500, the 50 shot of the panic button, and the guy was coming out on me, and then he was basically slowing down just to stay in front of me, and I was able to hit the button. He couldn't get on it fast enough, and I clipped it. So yeah, they didn't know I had a 50 shot. It was a sneaky Pete on top of the nitrous. I had a 250 big shot at the time. That's all it was. I think that was 1990s.
The old sneaky Pete.
Yep.
What about you, Dallas? You've had a lot of this kind of thing.
Not really. The one that sticks out in my mind, honestly, was 2016. Professor P and I made up a bunch of trophies at the track for an event. And we had a guy named Ron. I don't remember what his last name was. He never won ever. But we made these trophies were like not your normal trophies. They were like worst blown up, this best wheelie. Do you remember what all of them were, Shane? It was something like that. Like worst
hard luck.
out.
It was there was one that, hard luck.
And that guy Ron, he got the People's Choice Best Wheelie Award.
Mm-hmm.
That guy never won anything. And when we gave him that trophy, that dude welled up. He couldn't even talk. And then I was like, this is what we do this for, right? Like, that dude, I mean, that was the biggest thing for me. It didn't break my heart. It is like overwhelming because you know what this guy puts in, but he never gets anything out of it, and it was always, I felt kind of bad for him because he was always the duck. He was the one that everybody wanted first round, right? And Ron was one of them guys that was running a small block with a ton of nitrous in a class that was pretty much a hell of a lot of big cubic inch small blocks. And he had like 327 with 400 shot on it. And he just did it for the love. And man, that thing did some serious wheelies, but he was super duper proud of that award. I mean, for like a couple of years, he always messaged me and Shane saying, "Hey man, thanks so much for the award." And it just meant a ton to me. And that's when I realized that, we're neglected people.
Yeah. When Dallas and I were figuring out what the trophies and awards should be for the inaugural No Name Nationals, I know that heavily influenced it. And you can tell in the awards we give away that influenced it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Without question. Big James, what about you, sir?
Man, I feel like the guy that makes everybody's dreams come true, because if something bad can happen, it's going to happen to me. I can't tell you how many final round fumbles I've had in my illustrious race career, just stupid stuff. Even the first time we went to the No Name Nationals, first round of small tire, we didn't have the fastest car on the property, but we had a decently fast car, and we was running Steven Big Block 402, and our fuel pump fuse blew. Well, there was the end of that, and then he runs it down through there and chucks his rods out. It would have. It's like, gosh dang, man, come on. But
this came out of Steven's engine.
There it is.
This is the rod right here.
He still blames me for that.
He took this out of the old pan and sent it to me.
Apparently, it rubbed off on him too. I can't tell you how many races, just silly stuff. Forget to turn the nitrous bottle on. You get up there and your battery won't be charged good. It's just on and on and on. I should have won this. I should have won that. And we've won a lot of races and stuff. I mean, if you race long enough, you're going to win some and lose some. But we have a lot of funny stories about just silly mess ups, man. But part of it.
Makes you appreciate when things work out.
Well, people ask me all the time how I learn stuff, and I tell them, I said, I messed a lot of shit up figuring it out.
You don't figure out how to win until you've lost enough of them.
I promise that's true.
What about you, Michael?
Come from underdog stories? Is that
sure.
What?
How about that? How about an underdog? Something that you should have lost by all rights, and you found a way to win. What would it be?
I don't know about should have lost by all rights, but probably the craziest one I did was that Radial Fest race. I did it. I think it was in 21, and I had just kind of got my car together for Main Street, and I struggled with it all year. I mean, I had issues. I was trying to make that 28-10-5 tire work, and the weekend before it, I went tested at Twin City, and I think the best I'd ever run was like a 530 something or something. And, I knew the car should be faster. I was having issues with it. And I finally figured it out. And I went down there the weekend before and went like a 517, like right off the bat. And it did good all night. And I drove to Huntsville, Alabama, which is about 6.5 hours for me, and entered Main Street. And, they draw a random cap, ET cap there. So it could be anywhere between like a 510 and a 535, and they drew a 515, and I was like, well, that's good because the car ain't never gone that fast before. So I like you were talking about with that throttle stop racing earlier. I don't want to let off. I don't want to, I want to run it all out. And I think 38 cars that entered Mean Street, and for that, it ended up being like 4 days of racing, and I think I went a 5:16 like right off the trailer, and the whole weekend it ran 16, 17, 16, 17, and round after round after round after round after guys that have run this class for years, and it just kept working out. I mean, I cut a good light on the guys that I should have. There was a couple of them that I ran the exact same ET as the other guy, and like it was one off a hole shot, just by a .02 light versus a .04 light or something. And that was probably my best. I felt the best after that one for sure.
Before we give that one to the Nelsons, anybody want to take Sean's question here? Any advice on mentally speeding up the starting line process? Is it just experience needed?
Yeah.
Well, this sounds kind of weird, but even when you're testing, just always think of it every time you go up there that you're in the final round. Just prepare mentally for that. Don't waste any chance on a test pass. Well, I'm just going to go up here and goof off and play around. You got to be serious about it because it's just repetition and muscle memory at that point. If you get in a groove, you do the same thing every time. So
Yep.
Just
Sit in
take
the
it
car and
serious.
test it. Yeah, sit in your car in the garage and just run it through your procedure, and just so that way it's comfortable.
I had another one mess me up one time. The starting line, the tree malfunctioned, and we had to back up, and I shut everything off. And it messed me up on my routine, and I shut everything down, and I got back up there, and I had enough gas to idle, but I didn't have my fuel pump on. That messed me up one time, too. It's just, you get in a routine of doing things, and then if it gets broken, it's so easy to get messed up. So if you're not comfortable, just start all the way over, triple check.
I was always told to picture the perfect run in your head.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you do every time. And if you have to stop before you actually go down the track, the whole routine starts all over, regardless of where you're sitting at the track.
Yep.
But you should always picture the perfect run. And then as those things are happening, that's what you're doing.
I'm going to give that question to the Nelsons. What would be that thing where what would be that thing where you've come from behind, that kind of thing? What would it be?
We have a lot.
We have a lot of those, but I'm going to share a little bit longer story. In 2008, we had gone through a very serious family crisis. And when we got through it, my son mentioned that he wanted to build a car, and we did. And we put it in the trailer with wet paint, took it to Florida, and its first series of runs down the track, we set the event ET mile-an-hour record. That was 2008. We took the car back in 2007 and ran the top performance in the drags, but they didn't count the drags because not everybody got to take a pass. And everybody kept encouraging us to take the car back, and I told them I would not do that unless the whole family was able to join us. So we took the car in 2015. It was a 68 Beetle with a 350 under the hood, and we get down there, first pass, something was moving in the rear end, didn't feel right, came around, tried to make another run, car was moving all over the place, I couldn't even make it 60 feet. We ended up tearing that car apart in the rear suspension, welding stuff together, we ended up stripping the U-bolt in the rear suspension. I had, earlier in the day, given my spare lugs to a competitor so that he could compete. He was actually going to win that part of the event. And I had one lug. We cut it off and welded it to, after we cut the U-bolt off, my wife was operating the pedal on the TIG machine that another team had. My friend Denny was welding the cut off lug to the U-bolt,
laying on the ground.
laying on the ground.
Well, I
and-
was standing there shielding the wind from blowing the shield gas away.
And I'm holding the part. So here's Paula running the pedal, my friend laying on his belly trying to weld this, Calvin shielding the gas, I'm holding the part. We got that thing put together, and now they're getting ready to close the staging lanes, and we go running across the parking lot, throw that thing together. We're throwing the bolts into it. I'm throwing my fire suit on. Calvin lets down the jacket. I go flying out through the pits, get into the staging lanes just as they're closing them. Pull in, and it's like, well, this is it. Did a bonsai burnout, pulled up, let the trans brake fly, set the ET and mile-an-hour record, and won the event. That was cool, and that car had so many memories for us because, it started with a very difficult set of circumstances, and one of the last races I had, I beat Mike Finnegan with it in Norwalk. I got a heads-up race against General Mayhem, and we beat him soundly. He signed my timesheet, and we put it on a T-shirt, and he signed it. You kicked my ass, Mike, and it led to a good friendship. We've been able to keep in contact with each other at all the Dragon drives, but that moment in time of just thrashing things together and getting down to the very last second, and to win the event, we had to set the record, and we did.
Awesome. I gave an invite link to Joe in case he wanted to come in here and throw any shade or anything. So,
Is this not the bracket line? I thought this was a bracket line. Oh, my bad. No.
Well, anyway, what very last thing here. You close it down, Joe. What do you have for these guys?
Oh man, I'm begging Michael to fill up my nitrous bowl for me. If I can stack them both.
I'll fill them.
There you go. Yeah, if I can stack them both, and I got Professor P sent me some goodies to try on the car. So he's the man, and I don't know. I'm gonna contribute, put my $100 in so it can make the pot a little better and be a soft on it.
Well, thanks for coming by. We just had a nice little round table here, and we'll shut it down now. Appreciate you coming by, though. You got to keep them honest. Keep them a little nervous, Joe. But I want to thank all of y'all for coming out tonight. Thanks a bunch. It's been a blast. It's gone by. The chat's really the numbers have stayed high in the chat, so they obviously like what they're hearing.
Well, hey, I will say one thing. If I do get in there, I got to say this because I think Joe will probably give me crap if I don't. I will call out, I would say any motor car on any tire.
Ooh.
Come on.
That's your call. That's your shot calling, right?
Maybe even nitrous cars.
On any tire.
Ooh. All right. Somebody got to make you meet that. We'll see what happens.
I want one more thing too, is that just a reminder, aside from the 2010 50, is that me and Joe have a 2 out of 3 heads up race.
Yeah.
Just remember that.
So there is a match race coming on that Saturday. Professor P and Joe. If you've not yet gotten your tickets, you've not yet registered or gotten your spectator tickets, there's a link pinned at the top. If you want to see the bracket live, which is going to have our bracket race competitors, including just Mopar Joe, he's actually running both. That'll be next Friday. The Friday after that will be logistics. And with that, we've got 19 days, 1 hour, 55 minutes, gentlemen. We're going to shut down.
All right.
Everybody, have a great weekend. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you all again next Friday. Make sure to check out Tech Talk Live with Dallas and Professor P on Wednesday. And I will see you after that.
Take it easy.
See y'all.
See ya.